What's up, guys? Welcome to Chasing Pelagics. I'm Jeff, and this is your SoCal fishing forecast for Thursday, June 6th. Quick look at our weather here. We finally got some sun back. The clouds are trying to break free, but we do have a little bit of wind on the way. But our temps are warming up, especially next week, starting Monday, 73, going all the way to 78, 79. So starting to get the proper temps back here for July. Everything seems to be running a bit behind here. It's July and I haven't seen a June bug yet, so I'll leave you with that. But let's take a look at our current wind model here. This is Thursday. Drop a pin. Thursday, 15, 16 knots, and we're going to be seeing some gusts to 20 out there for pretty much the next 4 or 5 days, and eventually wrapping into a little bit of an eddy condition as well. But that outside wind there is going to be driving, some short period swell, 3 to 5 feet at 6 to 7 seconds. So not really small boat, private boat friendly out there. Once you get past San Clemente, maybe you might be able to sneak a day here on the inside, on the inner waters. But as for now, this wind is pretty steady in the forecast until that trend changes. We're gonna have this stuff around for a while. So that wind is really gonna make a mess of things here. Like I said, you might be able to sneak out here. Some of this 3 to 4 feet at 7 seconds, maybe. Private boat, maybe. Depends on how big. This is all still a variable on it too, so always check the forecast before you leave. But just to say, we're gonna have some wind on it for the next 5 or 6 days. Sport boat wise, if you're in a smaller boat, you might get canceled if you're heading west. Bigger sport boats, you'll probably be fine. Most of them can handle 20 knots for the most part. Won't be the best fishing conditions, but it's been biting, so it is what it is. Quick look at our 8-day chart here. That splotchy cloud cover has yet to give us a really good view at what we got here, but you can see the trend. Purple 60. We got a pretty sharp line right here, right? The orange is 69, 70. We don't really have any red in here yet, but even on 3-day, you can kind of see it's pretty much the same pattern. I don't know if we got a shot today that looks really good. So a little bit cleaned up here, but you can kind of see what we're working with. Overall, the trend is pretty much the same, almost a direct sharp line as you head west into that wind line from those northwest winds here. And 1-day chloro is not really helping, but the 8-day chloro chart has pretty much stayed the same. There's a blob of green water out here that you can't really pick up here on the average chart, but it's going to come down here and probably get close to the tanner, but that's what it looked like last week. And for the most part, this little knuckle of green water really hasn't changed. It's pretty much the same and hooked the coast all the way down here. So as far as conditions go, very similar to last week. But yeah, it's going to blow, especially on the outside. So let's get back to our chart here. Channel Islands. Things have started to come to an end of that sea bass season that we're all familiar with. What a great season, man. 2 fish. One's definitely probably going to be a spear record, and the other one was 2 pounds short of the all line class record. So pretty darn good year for sea bass, if you ask me. But things up there have really slowed down. Not much sign of sea bass. You might find an occasional one and maybe occasional yellow as well. But for the most part, that stuff has slowed down. Further north, San Francisco, we saw some bluefin make their way last year. And guess what? They made their way this year again. So maybe that's a trend that's going to continue as we get some of this warmer water, especially with this El Nino being forecasted next year, that maybe this bluefin will keep sliding up the coast as it did this year and last year. And mean, it's obviously going to go west into this purple water here. It always comes west, no matter what. But seems to be it's been finding its way up north a little bit more. And yeah, Golden Gate Bluefin, man. You wouldn't have said that 10 years ago, that's for sure. So things are changing, and you just gotta work with the trend of the change. So San Nick, there's been a couple yellows out here. No one's really fishing it that much. It's right in that nasty wind, so not worth coming this far for a couple of yellows. And that can be said for Tanner and Cortez Bank as well. Still some yellows on the high spots here, guys, but I mean, 100 miles for a couple of yellowtail. I'll pass, especially in the wind as well. So, Santa Barbara Island, we're still getting a little mix of sea bass at this island. It's probably your last chance for a sea bass. It's going to be at Santa Barbara Island. Like I said, it's been going in waves. There's been a couple picked up over the last few days as well. Although, again, most people are out looking to fish for bluefin instead. But the sea bass have still been hanging around this island pretty consistently for like the last 3 months. And they usually bite in like a week or two at a time and then don't bite at all. So if you're looking for a last chance of sea bass, that is going to be the place to stop at. Kelly Island, we warned you. We warned you last week that there was going to be an insane amount of boat traffic, which means no fishing etiquette. People don't know what they're looking at, probably running your stuff over, and it's pretty much going to shut this thing down. There is a little bit of yellowtail running around the island, not a lot. It's going to be finesse fishing, like 15-pound fluorocarbon, maybe 20. Not huge fish, so you probably get by, but finesse fishing, and you really have to work for them if you can try and find them. So if you're really focused on fishing in Catalina, I'd give it probably another week. Let the stuff stop getting run over, and let it try and settle in for a little bit after that big holiday weekend, and check back. But as for now, I give this a little bit more time to try and recover from what just happened there. Moving down south, St. Clair Island, still getting a little bit of that springtime. I'm going to call it springtime even though it's July. That springtime yellowtail action. Still have yellows down here. Pyramid Cove, China Point. A little bit on the front side here in this warmer water. But you got to have current. You got to have that good conditions. The water's been pretty clean, so that's the good news. In the area, we don't have a whole lot of green water, so things are looking up for the island, and I think it's just starting to get going, although it didn't really get going all that well last year, but we'll see what happens. Coronados, again, another kind of bleak island right now. Not a lot of people fishing it. There's been some barracuda around, and typically in my experience, when there's barracuda around, the yellowtail don't bite. So if you get into a yellowtail bite and the barracuda show up, pretty much the yellowtail are gone. That's usually how it works, and that's happened to me in multiple places. But if you are focused on that, start on the weather side is usually where I look first, and maybe you might scratch a couple out of there. All right, let's talk about offshore fishing. We mentioned, I'm going to switch back here to the bottom detail to give us a little bit more things to work with here. But I mentioned last week that this escarpment, we've had bluefin on here from basically the north end of St. Clair Island to the 499 to the 711. That you can find them on both edges of this escarpment, and that's where they've been. This week, the ship's a little bit more west, at least some of the volume, but this area alone, you can find anything from 2 to 20 pounds, 2 to 20, 20 to 200 pounds, and you don't know what you're going to run into. So if you're setting up for a jig bite at nighttime, definitely fish heavy, obviously with some jig leaders. If you're not familiar with those, 6 foot long monofilament leader with a split ring on one end and a swivel on the other, and basically it prevents your jig from getting chewed off. And the fish don't really care at night, so it's a good way to preserve your jig and make sure you don't get chewed off. During the daytime, completely different thing. They can see the line, so you end up fishing something like 40 pound, 30 pound, 40 pound. Trying to be sneaky. If they're good sized fish and you can identify that they're bigger, I wouldn't fish less than like 60 or 80, but Just depends on the size that you run into. If you're not getting the bites you want to, try sliding down in line size, but just be prepared. Things will happen, and be prepared for those losses. Definitely going to happen. Around the island, we've had a good little run of bluefin again here. I gotta switch back this chart again. Wrong chart. We have that steep edge here on the backside of Catalina, and we still have this, like, it's semi-mixed water here, right? It's warm on this side, but kind of cooler on this side, and as you come this way, cooler water, right? Once things start getting like over 70, the bluefin aren't really interested in hanging on that water, and especially in 72 and up, they're definitely not likely to be found in that type of water. But 70 degrees and below, fairly likely. And sometimes you'll get a mix of them in that 70 to 72 degree water. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. So as this water's been warming up, there's been some yellowfin that I've been starting to mix in. Right now it's like 90% bluefin, 10% yellowfin, and generally speaking, you can identify them just by the way that they act. If you've been watching these fish jump around and pull around for 6 or 7 years or longer now, you kind of identify what their behaviors are. Not that they're always going to act the same, but generally, if they're spooky, it's bluefin. If they come right to the boat and they don't care about anything, or they'll bite a skirted lure on your stern 3 feet off, it's going to be a yellowfin. And that's typically just the difference between the two and the way that they act. But as you come west here, cooler waters, you find a lot more bluefin. Come a little bit more inshore, a lot better chance of yellowfin or some be mixed up. But it's a little early for yellowfin based on what we've been seeing condition-wise. I'm thinking like another 2 weeks. If this wind doesn't wreck shop over here on the west side, then you're going to see a lot more yellowfin move up. We did have a little bit of Dorado caught up here on a kelp patty by the 14 Mile Bank. So that tells me that the stuff is sliding up, but we have a big gap here and cooler water, 64 up here. So it really doesn't have anywhere to go yet. So sometimes, like I said, we see this come up, it'll kind of check the conditions, and it'll kind of come back down. And I think you're going to see that this week. The stuff's going to kind of move around with the wind a little bit. Nothing too much really over here on the west side that's going to be affected because it's already been in this cool water, and that's really not going to change for a while with the type of wind that we're seeing here. So, but you got a chance at tuna basically coming up this whole way. Kelp patties as well, bluefin, yellowfin. You really have a chance at anything. But the stuff that we're going to tell you about is where there's a majority volume, right? So we can't always identify like where all the kelp patties are lined up. Obviously on a temp break or a current break, that's where you're going to find them. Or in like a weird wind line, you'll see them stacked up. But generally speaking, we're going to identify where we see like a large volume of fish. And really, it's going to be, from the 43 south here. You might find some over here, the 181 to 182. But where we're seeing basically from the 43 coming up this ridge, let me switch back to bottom detail. But basically when we hit the 371, the fish really got 2 ways to follow this edge. And it's right through San Salvador Knoll, right through this little canyon, and head west towards Clementi, or they slide up through here. And then they work their way either east up into the shallow waters or west and hang along this edge up here through this area where we've been finding a big pile of bluefin. But right now it seems like there's a mix of bluefin and yellowfin on this side and a lot more bluefin on this side. So the grade of fish in this area has not been huge, 20 to 60 pounds really in general. No real stand-up jumbo ones in this area as of right now. Guys from Ensenada this week have caught a couple bigger ones, not like a whole bunch of them, but a couple. So it just tells me that you still got a chance at either some more of the stuff pushing up that's still a better grade, or you're just going to have to go west and really hunt around and try and find out where they're going to hang out. But this wind is going to have all this thing kind of stirred up anyway. So over the next 4 or 5 days, if you're really trying to hunt a big bluefin and go west over here into this really nasty windy water, your chances are probably not going to be good. Maybe a chance over here on this escarpment up above Second Island where they've been hanging out. I think that they will survive the wind pattern in this area based on, what we're looking at here with this wind. Just, they're kind of on that line there. So every day seems to be pretty similar. And it even blows a little bit. It's nothing too crazy. So I think those fish are going to hang there. But anything west out here, Cortez, Tanner, I wouldn't even consider at this point, like, these water temps are so low that, purple, 60? Nah. Yeah, you're really going to have to wait till August, late August, maybe September before you start coming back out here again and really trying to poke around at this stuff. So that's what we got going on, guys. The good news is that we are seeing some of this stuff foam up, and it's a little bit more easier to identify on the surface than just a breezer. So with that being started, we're gonna kick off a little foamer discount for everyone on the website. Any popper, or we have those clear jerk lures, the pencil lures. We're gonna do 15% off on all of them through Sunday. So we'll help get that party started for the foam. But guys have been successful catching them on poppers already. So yeah, if you're on one of those 3/4 day boats that's going to spend a lot of time during the daytime, definitely make sure you have a popper rigged other than a jig, and you got a better chance at getting some of that topwater action with a popper. But that's it for this week, guys. Be safe out there. Check the weather, and we'll catch you next week. Cheers.
Hey, thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and check out our website and online store at chasingprojects.com. And make sure you share the stoke.